All right, let's get right into it. Today we are tackling one of the biggest, and let's be honest, one of the trickiest parts of the entire decarbonization puzzle, your suppliers. How do you actually get the partners who move your stuff to get on board with your big, ambitious climate goals? Well, let's break it down.
I want to start with this and just let it sit there for a second. Now, why 2026? It's not some random year. Think of it as a tipping point. It's when a lot of major corporate pledges come due and when new regulations are really going to demand that you show your work. This quote, it really gets to the core truth of this whole thing. If you try to decarbonize your logistics all by yourself, you are going to fail. Period.
And here's why. The key thing to wrap your head around is this. All those emissions hotspots we're trying to fix, for most of us, they're not in our own buildings. They're out on the highway, in your carrier's trucks. You're signing the checks, sure, but they're the ones who own the tailpipes. And that creates this huge challenge of trying to have influence without having direct control.
And this chart, wow, this really shows you just how massive that challenge is. Take a look at a typical company's footprint. Scope 1 and 2, that's your direct emissions. They're just a tiny sliver of the pie. The giant 85% piece is Scope 3, and that is almost all your supply chain. So let's be really clear. If your carriers aren't on this journey with you, you're not just failing the planet, you are going to fail your future audits.
So what this all means is that the old way of doing things is frankly broken. That traditional transactional relationship you have with your suppliers, it just wasn't built to solve a problem this big and this interconnected. We need a totally new playbook.
And this slide really lays out the fundamental mindset shift we're talking about. We have to move away from a relationship that's just based on transactions and compliance and move towards one that's built on true partnership and empowerment. It means swapping out those short-term, cost-focused contracts for long-term performance-based ones. And probably most important of all, it's about trading that old stick of just monitoring and penalizing for the carrot of real incentives and actual support. It's about building a decarbonization alliance.
Okay, so great idea. But how do we actually build this alliance? Well, we're going to break it down into 4 really practical, actionable levers you can pull. This is your playbook.
So, here they are. First, we're going to talk about redefining your contracts, the legal foundation. Then we'll get into building powerful incentives. Third, we'll look at what it really means to co-invest in solutions. And finally, we'll cover the digital tools you absolutely need to make it all hang together. Let's dig into that first one.
So by 2026, your standard logistics contract is going to look different. Carbon is no longer just a nice-to-have footnote, it's a core commercial variable, just like price or on-time delivery. And the way you do this was something called the carbon clause. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a legally binding part of the deal that sets a maximum for emissions.
So what's in a good carbon clause? 3 things. First, binding targets. You set a max CO2 per ton kilometer. Second, you put financial stakes on it. So penalties if they go over, but also rewards or rebates if they do better. And third, and this is a big one, you mandate transparency. This means you require primary data like actual fuel burn from their trucks, not just some generic industry average. And you make it simple. If a carrier can't provide that real data, they can't even bid for your business.
But here's the thing. A contract is just a piece of paper. The stick by itself rarely works. To really get this moving, you have to pair that stick with a carrot. You can't just demand that your partners perform better, you have to help create an environment where they can perform better.
And there are some really powerful ways to do that. You can create a green tiering system where your cleanest carriers get first dibs on your best lanes. You can offer long-term security. Think about it. A 3 to 5 year contract gives a carrier the financial confidence they need to go out and invest in that new electric or HVO, that's hydrotreated vegetable oil, fleet. And one of the coolest ideas I've seen is green financing, offering faster payment terms, like getting paid in 15 days instead of 60 for hitting those decarbonization milestones. That's a huge incentive.
Okay, lever number 3 takes this whole partnership thing to the next level. If you're really an alliance, you can't just throw the burden on your partners. You have to share it. In 2026, real collaboration is going to look a lot more like a joint venture, where you share both the cost and, of course, the carbon reduction rewards.
So what's that look like in the real world? Well, we're seeing big shippers and their logistics partners go in together on funding charging hubs at their distribution centers. The shipper has the land, the carrier has the trucks. They both invest, they both benefit. Or another great one, using your company's size to do group sourcing. You negotiate a big discount on sustainable fuels, and then you pass that savings on to your smaller partners who could never get that price on their own.
And that brings us to our 4th and final lever. None of this, the contracts, the incentives, the co-investing, none of it works if you're trying to manage it with spreadsheets and a bunch of emails. To make an alliance like this actually function at scale, you have to have the right technology.
The modern tool for this is a real-time supplier portal, but it's so much more than just a dashboard to track numbers. It lets suppliers anonymously benchmark themselves against the best-in-class performers on any given route. It can offer training modules on complicated stuff, like how to do emissions calculations correctly. And you know, what's really fascinating is how this changes your role. You're not just a customer anymore. You actually become a consultant, actively helping your partners get better.
So, when you pull all this together, the big message here becomes incredibly clear. Decarbonizing logistics, it's not a solo mission. It is the ultimate team sport.
Your success is completely tied to the success of your partners. You can have the greatest strategy in the world on a PowerPoint slide, but if your carriers aren't equipped and motivated to execute it, it doesn't mean a thing. Your supply chain really is only as green as its weakest link.
So if there's one thing, one crucial point to take away from all this, it's this. The companies that are going to win in this new world are the ones who stop just monitoring their suppliers and start actively empowering them.
Now, I know exactly what a lot of you are probably thinking right now. This is great. New contracts, co-investments, fancy digital portals. But this all sounds really expensive. I've got a budget to hit. How in the world am I supposed to pay for all of this?
And you know what? That is the perfect question, and it's the perfect setup for what we're going to tackle next time, because I'm going to show you the free lunch of the green transition. We are going to talk about how you can cut your emissions by up to 20% with no new trucks, no new fuel, and no CapEx, just by getting a whole lot smarter about how you operate. So if you like saving money as much as you like saving the planet, I will see you then.